Hi, this is Michael Bean, and this is your myfreeactingclass.com lesson 4. What is today? Thursday, October the 1st. October already, oh my God. Today is Ask Me Anything, and so I am happy to, I'm always happy to talk about camera things and self-tapes, but what I most want to do is get questions from you and answer them. We've got a fantastic, diverse group of folks joining us today. So we've got a representative from a couple of different sort of groups of folks who attend these lessons, and it's a small enough group that I think there's no need to raise your hands. If you have a question, please just jump in. So so here's Olivia. What is your take on doing background while also auditioning for roles? Great. That's a great place to start, Olivia. Let's start there. So personally, I think that background work is a fantastic way to get familiar with being on a film set. Doing background work was, for me, my first exposure to being on a professional film set. And so learning the terminology and what the assistant director is, and why there is an assistant director and a first, a second, and a second assistant director and a third assistant director, and listening to the way camera people talk to each other, and listening to the actors and seeing the setup. So in terms of doing it for exposure to a film set so that you're a little bit more comfortable when you get there, I actually think doing some background work at some point is a really good idea. Maybe then you get to seem that much more professional when you step onto a film set as an actor for the first time. Does it help you or hurt you as a film and TV actor? I don't think it helps you. Yes, occasionally background performers get grabbed for a single line of dialogue. That does occasionally happen, but background work doesn't get listed on your resume, and productions are actually typically one of the main complaints that I hear about background is background who are sort of always angling to get a line, like people who are treating it like this is going to be their big break. Your background is not your big break. Background, you are a human prop, and as soon as they can replace all of the human props with computers, they absolutely will, especially right now. I don't know what the background is like during COVID, and if any of you have done any background work in the last 6 months, I would be really interested to hear if that's still happening, and what it is like. So does it help your career as an actor? In the sense that it gives you familiarity with professional film set? Maybe. Does it hurt you as an actor? Not in the eyes of casting directors, because you're not going to list it on your resume, and nobody from the production will ever know. Like, that's the thing. As a background, you are below the production assistants on the totem pole. You have zero status, like less than zero status. You're an object to be moved around at their will, and they take good care of you, and they pay you, and they feed you, but they very rarely look at you or see you as a human being. So the likelihood that somebody will be like, oh, Olivia, yeah, we see her on set all the time as background, I don't know about her, is zero. Like that is a totally fabricated worry that I hear actors bring up, and I get it. I get where it comes from. I think that the inception of the worry makes sense, but it is not a real thing, in my opinion. I will also caution anybody who is pursuing acting professionally against doing too much background work, just for status reasons. Backgrounds are the lowest of the low status on set, which means that when somebody says jump, you say how high, and then you do it. And most of the time, it's a really super chill, sweet job, because you just sit around doing nothing, eating their food, and waiting for them to call you. And sometimes you do that for 12 hours, and they use you for 5 minutes, and then they send you home. And so in terms of like part-time jobs, background work is 100% better, maybe more than that percent better than any part-time job that I ever worked as a young person. And I wish I'd known that a little bit sooner. But the thing that I encourage you to stay grounded with is Notice the way the actors behave. There's a certain amount of healthy entitlement that actors have on set. They know that they are an important part of the process. They are allowed to ask for things. They have status, and they are allowed to act as though their questions deserve to be answered and their needs deserve to be met. Background, that is not the case. And so if you do background a lot, the one risk is that then when you get to a film set as an actor, you're still in that mode of like, oh, gosh, I want to stay out of everybody's way, and I want to be invisible, and I don't want to make any waves, and I shouldn't ask any questions because, I don't want to take up any space because I'm really just here, as backup, as support. And so think about that if you're going to do a bunch of background work. There's my whole answer on background work. Okay, Donald, Eve, Candy, hi. You and I are both in cars today, although I am not driving. I'm not sure why I thought that I could do that while teaching, but I've chosen not to. My pleasure, Olivia. And if you look in the How to Get a Talent Agent PDF, which I believe you can find a link to from my free acting class. You have to follow it through first to resources and then to the ebooks and things, but you can get there from the myfreeactingclass.com website. There is a list of background agencies in there. Is it really crucial to know a second language? No, I don't think it's crucial to know a second language any more than it is crucial to be highly competitive at a sport. Now, in general, film and TV acting is highly competitive. And anything that you have as a skill, it's important that your agent know about those because it's potentially an asset. Lots of actors get their first break because they need somebody who's an actor who can also play piano or do volleyball or speak Russian or speak Cantonese or speak Mandarin. So if you do any of those things, even a bit, I think it's really important to let your agent know about them. And in general, with skills that you're listing on your resume, my advice to actors typically is if you can do it at a 3 out of 10 skill level, then record it on your resume. Do not lie. I've heard, and maybe you've heard as well, horror stories about actors who audition for things like, yeah, I can swim, or I can skydive because they just want work. And they're like, yeah, I'll figure it out if it happens. And then they end up in a callback or worse on set, being expected to have this kind of basic skill and not having any of it at all. And that's, of course, a huge problem, for producers, and that's when actors can get in trouble. So don't lie. And I think that if you speak, let's say that your grandparents speak Ukrainian, and you hang out with your grandparents some, and you have over your whole life, and you can kind of understand what they're saying mostly, at least some of the time, and you can make simple sentences, and you're like, yeah, I can speak Ukrainian at a 3 out of 10. Then I think that you would put Ukrainian basic on your resume, and that might actually get you a break because if it is a professional film and TV production, they may need somebody who is a skilled actor. That's always first and number one, who can also do whatever. So I hope that answers your question, Eve. Is it crucial to speak a second language? No, it's not crucial. Is it potentially an asset? Yeah. And so are lots of things that you wouldn't expect. I have worked as an actor, I think once with lines and twice as a special skills extra, where they pay you substantially better and treat you substantially better, because I can juggle 3 balls. I had to learn it as part of a drama class in college. I am not a skilled juggler, but really I can juggle at a 3 out of 10 skill level, meaning I can keep 3 balls going for a little while. And that has gotten me doing that on camera 3 different times over the course of the last 20 years, which I would never have expected. And I think lots of actors have stories like that anything that you do and that you like, you should make sure it's listed on Actors Access and Casting Workbook, and that your agent has that information, because sometimes those can turn into opportunities to work you wouldn't expect. Donald says, yeah, I have basic Spanish on my resume. Yes, great. And so Donald's main point about like, he understands it well enough that he can come across as a native speaker, I think is really valid. I get this question about accents a lot. I think mostly because actors are, especially young actors, but really lots of actors are excited about accents. It's fun. It makes you feel like a different person. And there are auditions in Vancouver that I've been asked to go out for that required an accent. I think I've auditioned with an English accent, a Polish accent, and a Scottish accent, right? All things that it looks like I might have that accent because of the white skin and the red beard. And with the English accent, that's something that I had worked extensively as part of a character that I did for theater. And so I had those, whatever, hundreds of hours of practice in my body. And so that one I could just do. The Scottish accent, thankfully, was just one line. And so, I listened to some Scottish on YouTube and figured it out. The Polish accent was so far out of my wheelhouse that I worked with an accent coach. And if anybody wants recommendations for accent coaches, Donald and I have a mutual friend, Hans, who's a great coach. I've worked with someone, Aria Damaris, who also is highly skilled. Be happy to recommend some of those folks. And then of course there's Liz McLaughlin, who taught several lessons on here. So with those, with something that is specific, that you don't have either hundreds of hours of practice in, or like sort of personal experience with, like let's say a family member who speaks with that accent, lots of exposure, I would say it's important to get accent coaching or just to turn down that audition, because the only time you're going to be booked for film and TV is if you can come across as a native speaker. Yeah, and I think that that's where that's where actors' ambitions or excitement, sometimes outstrips their actual skill. Somebody's like, I can do a German accent. And it's like, yeah, because they can sort of do a passable, comedy German, or like enough to fool people at the bar. But compared to somebody who actually speaks German or has exposure to people with a German accent, it's just night and day. It's so easy to tell the difference between one that is internalized, comfortable, familiar, where somebody really owns it, and one that somebody's really just putting on. All right. We've got a couple of, there we go. More questions. Eve, Donald, is there anything that you'd like me to talk about today?
I have a question.
Please.
You might recall that in my infinite wisdom, I separated with my agent right before Christmas, and then went on holidays and decided, I'll get a new agent when I get back from Hawaii.
Right. Oh God, just in the middle of like a global pandemic.
I got back from Hawaii, and then, personal things, threw stuff aside with kids and whatnot. And then before I could get back to contacting any agents I was interested in, COVID happened. So now I'm at the point where I'm reaching out to agents in the midst of COVID, and I'm having a lot of difficulty. I'm getting a few of like my top 3 are either not responding or get back to me in a year, like wait till this is over type things. I'm watching rosters shrink, right? They're not growing. And I'm wondering if there's any way to, because right now self-tape season, baby, and I've got the whole setup. I could be doing it a lot. And I just don't know how to get in that door.
With that in mind, if your top 3 are getting back to you at all, I would say that that's, a sign that they're seeing something, interesting or valuable in your submission, because otherwise they wouldn't waste their time. Yeah. Agents, many of them get 50 plus submissions a day. And I don't know how that's changing with people at home, but I think it's probably time to have another talent agent on, as a guest, because when we had Candace Fulton from Kirk Talent join us a couple of months ago, she said straight out, like, this is not a good time to go looking. But then a number of agents, that I've talked to, or that I talked to over the summer were like, tell them to get a hold of me in the fall. And so your basic comment that like this is self-tape season,
Yeah.
a lot of the actors I know are doing more self-tapes, and in fact sort of more auditions because of those self-tapes than they're used to. And what I'm starting to hear is that casting directors are seeing 50 people for a role, which has not happened in Vancouver. It's been normal in LA always, but if casting directors are seeing 50 people, then there's more chance to tape. And so even if almost every really reputable agent in Vancouver has somebody already in your age group, right? And it gets a little bit more complicated as an adult because your age group is wider, right? You're looking at, if they've got somebody from kind of mid-20s to mid-40s, they might consider that person a conflict. And so you might just have to keep looking for a while before you find an agency where their person in your age category who looks kind of like you has just aged out, or who has just moved to another city. But there's definitely an agency out there. And if you send me an email, I will, so that you don't have to go hunting for that, the like how to find a talent agent list. I'll send you the list of, here are the top agencies, in my opinion. And actually, I had a brand new agency contact me. And so I know for a fact that they are building their roster from scratch. They sent me an email just a couple of days ago, and 2 of the 3 agents are people who I know from other talent agencies. They're called Nuance, Nuance talent.
Okay.
And so signing with a smaller agency now, even if your goal is to then transition to a larger agency a year from now, it just would get you in the game.
My top 3 are boutiques.
Oh, okay.
I'd rather be a bigger priority for them than the bottom of the totem pole. My fear right now is, do I go for a bigger agency where I'm not a higher priority, but I might be shotgunned out for something just to see what happens? Because if we're accepting 50 tapes versus the 8 or 10 we'd call into the room, I'm going to be having a lot more opportunity to get exposed to those casting agents that didn't call me before.
Yes.
Right. So then they can see my face. So it's a little bit of a balance, but I like that, Nuance. I dig the name. The other side of that, if I can just borrow you for a couple more minutes, I'm used to the process of you submit, you go in and talk to an agent and figure out if you're a good fit, mull over it and then sign a contract. What's that look like in COVID?
I have a hunch that that's happening, all by Zoom.
Okay.
Right. And that was happening even before Zoom. Some of the, especially the boutique agencies that I know, I would have the parents contact me and be like, hey, I've never met my agent in person. Like, is that normal? And of course, now that's the situation that all of the new folks are in. You might be asked for video material, and more than likely there's going to be like a quick video meeting, and that's about it.
I'm okay with the video meeting. I'm just used to the sit down in an office or over coffee and you see a person. It's not an email. So I'm a little hesitant because I've turned down offers in the past because it's like, you don't want to meet me first. That doesn't jive with me, but now that's it seems like you have to go that route because you can't meet somebody physically.
I think if you've vetted somebody such that you think you've seen their roster, and you've checked them out on IMDb Pro, and you can see that they represent skilled people and know what they're doing, then if they offer to represent you, asking for a quick video meeting, in the process of saying yes, I think sounds really legitimate to me. I don't know. I actually haven't talked in detail to anybody who's gone through the process of signing up with a new agent in the last couple of months. So hopefully, 3 weeks from now, when you've found yours, you can come back and be a guest on here and talk.
Thank you for the faith in me there, Michael. 3 weeks. That right. Sounds awesome.
Well, it sounds like you're already getting offers that you just sort of weren't sure about, and so.
Well, I haven't in the last couple of months. Haven't gotten any offers. It's been more call back in a year, right? But I have in the past turned down certain offers because it's like I want to deal with a person. but the reality of the things are kind of hitting me the last couple of weeks, that this is a not face-to-face thing for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
So
I'm going to transition on to Eve's question, if that's all right, Donald.
yeah.
Great. So Eve's question is, do you need to have a big social media following? And do you need to get one to get an agent or to get auditions? No, definitely not, because nobody starts with one. Is there a point in your career where having a big social media following might be meaningful in terms of your bookings? Yeah, absolutely. But it's not right at the beginning. Like, nobody expects you to have 1 million followers, or X number of thousand followers, or they're not going to sign you up as an agent. Um, if you were in the running for like a large recurring role on a TV show or a lead in a movie, it's possible that the decision makers would say, well, how many followers does she have? And if she doesn't have at least X number, then that feels like, people just aren't interested enough, in watching her. That is a possible thing. So I would say don't put a ton of energy into it right now, but do see if you can get your name, first name, last name, on all of the social media platforms where it's available, so that at the point where you book something, then you are sort of primed to have that put out there, whether that's put out there by you or by the first folks who interview you for a newspaper article, or like I've seen it happen with sci-fi shows. I had this student, Corey Gruder Andrew, and he booked a recurring role on Legends of Tomorrow, which has like a rabid fan base because it's sci-fi, superhero. Like people who are into those kinds of shows are really, really, really into them. So even though he had a fairly small role, it was significant story-wise. And he was in class at the time, and he went from the like 23 followers on Instagram who were his friends to 5,000 followers, more or less overnight, like between one class and the next week's class, because the show had started to air and the rabid fans were like, who is this guy that's playing this character? I must know more about him. And I don't think that he did a lot of work for that, but he was positioned well for it, because when people said, who is this guy? I've got to go find him. His Instagram wasn't like Donut Boy 63574. It was, his actual name. And so hopefully that answers your question. I've got a interesting story around that. If nobody has a question they want to jump in with immediately. Edward Ray used to be a casting director. He used to work with Tiffany, and he did some work with Candice Elzinga and Judy Lee. I don't believe he's casting anymore, but he was casting for a show called MC Squared. And he came into my class to do a workshop just when they were choosing one of the lead characters. And so I had never seen this before, but he was like, you know what, let me just show you, because this isn't recorded, it wasn't by Zoom. He was like, it's just the 6 of you. Like, I can get away with this. Here are the top candidates. He's like, here's the person who the studios wanted. And it was this actor from LA, and slick blonde guy, very handsome, looked sort of like a surfer or a model or something. And the character was supposed to be like, it was a comedic TV show, and the character was supposed to be like shy and geeky and awkward around girls. And he showed us this guy's performance of one of the audition scenes, and skilled actor, confident guy, not in any way believable, as somebody who was like funny, geeky, shy, smart, awkward around girls. Not believable at all. He said that they had to, but the producers kept pushing for him because they just really wanted to get this guy in the show. So they had to see him multiple times, but he just never could pull it off. He just couldn't do the geeky character. He didn't have that in his tool belt yet. So he's like, and here's our second option. This guy is from Vancouver, and he's got 500,000 followers on YouTube. And so, they wanted to cast him because he's got all these followers, and maybe they'll watch the show. And again, this guy was completely different look, like Latinx something, and kind of like cool, and had like a little bit of an accent, and again, he was just too cool. Like no matter how much he tried to be geeky, he couldn't pull it off. And then he was like, and then this is a tape we got from this guy who's on Vancouver Island, and he sent it to us yesterday, and they cast him this morning, and they showed us a tape of this actor who only had a couple of credits, but was just so right for this role in terms of what he brought to it, and like feeling it, that like where he's doing, you just are so rooting for this guy, and he was so funny, you kind of almost had tears in his eyes, in this way that where you still didn't feel bad for him as a person, as he was like practicing in front of the mirror in the scene. It was beautiful. Like I wish I could show all three to you, but that's a specific tangible experience I have of, yes, in that case the producers cared about somebody's social media presence, but they didn't disqualify everybody else, and actually ended up just hiring the actor who was best for the role, regardless of their social media. Does that help, Eve? Okay. We've got just another couple of minutes. Is there anything else that you haven't heard me talk about in recent lessons, or that is a burning question on your mind, that you would like me to talk about before we wrap up today? Okay. Let's see, is there anything that I want to share with you? I'm going to approach Omari Newton, who runs the Casting Workbook Labs, and see if I can get him in as a guest to talk about the work that they're doing there, and what he's learned in the process of doing that over COVID. I'm going to, after today, approach a talent agent. And I think it might be interesting to bring in a background agent. I haven't had anybody like that here in the free lessons. And if you have ideas, it's info@myfreeactingclass.com. The email is really easy. If you're like, oh, who I would really love to hear talk about their experience is XYZ. An actor who is more like this, more like me in this way that I haven't seen represented in your interviews yet, who knows more about this side of the industry. Because I've had some of you send great ideas to me, and I've followed up on those as best I can, but I'm building that list. And so even if you can't think of it right now, if there's somebody who you want to see me talk to, I'm connected, 1 or 2 steps away to a lot of people in this industry, just because I've been around for so long, and I don't know all of these people firsthand, but I probably know people who do. Okay, let's wrap there. Thanks so much for coming, everybody, today. Saska sisters. Bye, everyone.
Bye, thanks.